Are you ready to break through the mental barriers holding you back? Welcome to the Mind Mastered Secrets of Excellence with Don Grant. Since 2001, Don has been guiding elite athletes like PGA Tour champions, Olympians, and world champions, and everyday individuals toward peak performance. With a proven track record, including helping Vijay Singh win the 2008 FedEx Cup, and her PGA Tour clients averaging a 219% increase in earnings. Dawn knows what it takes to succeed. She's the inventor of the Mind Mastered app, author of 7 Strokes in 7 Days, a sought-after speaker worldwide, and the proud owner of Amelia Shotgun Sports in Northeast Florida. Join us as we dive into powerful strategies, inspiring interviews, and Dawn's unique insights to help you excel in every area of your life, sports, career, relationships, and beyond. And now, here's your host, Don Grant.
Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Mind Mastered Secrets of Excellence. This is Don Grant. I appreciate you following and your insights and your comments related to the different interviews and the folks that I have on here. I love interviewing folks that have had great success in their life in one form or fashion. There are obviously lots of different ways that people can be successful, but especially tuning into secrets of their excellence, because there's always skills and tidbits that we can learn from people who have faced challenges and have learned ways to overcome them. And, the greater the success, the more the challenges. So I have Dylan Moscovitch with me today, and I'm very excited because you have dabbled in and currently dabbling in several really fascinating things, but also have been a figure skater and medalist and Olympian and all sorts of cool things. So, Dylan, thank you for being here with me.
Hey, thank you for having me, Don. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation and diving into the ins and outs of mastering the mind. It's a topic that has fascinated me.
Nice. Give the audience some highlights. Like, what are some success highlights from your life?
Well, as you alluded to, success can look very different in many different ways. I would say some of the more obvious low-hanging fruit ones came from my figure skating career. I was Canadian champion, um, multiple international medalist, Olympic silver medalist in 2014. I mean, those are kind of my main figure skating in a nutshell highlights of some of my successes. I went on to do some acting, some broadcasting. I had a small role in a Netflix series, a small role in an Amazon Prime series, very small, but I'll name them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did some broadcasting for figure skating. I did commentary for the World Championships. I co-hosted a show for the CBC Sports, and also hosted the 2022 Olympics through it, and did quite a bit of work in that world, as well as coaching figure skating and hockey. Um, and then I moved on to what is now my life, which is, being of service to people in their evolution and their healing and their growth and their thriving. And so I've completely shifted and taken a lot of the tools from my life as an athlete and a martial artist as well, and brought it into the inward journey, and have really found a lot of internal success, a lot of satisfaction, and um, like self-generated validation through really looking at all the aspects that are hard to look at. And I would say sitting with my truth and looking in the mirror has been one of the most challenging and one
Yeah,
of the most rewarding journeys that I've been on in my life.
for sure. That's definitely understandable and highly relatable. uh, let's go back. I like to follow a little bit of a timeline and really get to know you. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Toronto, in Canada. I grew up in kind of the west downtown area called Parkdale, and moved around the city, and then with skating, I kind of hopped around different places within Ontario. But Toronto was always my base, my home.
What got you into the skating?
Well, when I was 13 months old, my parents took me skating. Well, they went skating. My mom's from South Africa originally, and so my dad took her skating on an outdoor rink. I was 13 months old. I wasn't allowed on the ice unless I had skates on, even if they were carrying me. So they had to rent those like bob skates, the double bladers,
Yeah.
and they put them on me. I just started walking, and they put me down, and I started walking around the ice and fell in love. And so eventually, after a couple years of me crying because I was cold, and then them taking me inside and me crying because I wanted to go back out there, someone at the outdoor rink shared that there was an indoor community center nearby, and I went, and I was about almost 3, and a coach came over and said, "Oh, he's pretty good. Can I give him a lesson?" And the rest is history.
That was really young. First of all, do you remember those? Do you have memories specifically of those times?
I do have some memories. I have some memories of skating around the side rink on the public session before entering into, the Learn to Skate program, the Can Skate program, and eventually the figure skating program. I played hockey, I played baseball, I played soccer. I was very involved in other sports, but there was something about figure skating that I just felt this deep resonance with, and like this internal calling.
That's really fascinating, especially at such a young age, and
Hmm.
that you remember it too. I have horrible memories from w even small things later in life, but most of my childhood, I probably have, like, 3 memories. I'm not even joking. It's very interesting to me because I like, my husband, his memory is incredible. He can remember so many different things, so but 13 months old I was gonna say 13 years. 13 months old is what you said, right? Months, not years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And that you recognize that there was some kind of pull for you there, um, is pretty fascinating to me also. To me, that sounds more spiritual, more kinda like life purpose, something going on there unconsciously that was grabbing you. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I don't think I would have had the language for it during my career, or that kind of language. Just felt like a calling, a purpose. My mom said when I was 5, she asked me if I wanted to go to the Olympics. I said, "No, I wanna win the Olympics."
No,
Like,
at 5.
yeah,
Interesting.
I don't know. It is very interesting. It is very interesting. In hindsight, I think figure skating has such a beautiful balance of artistry and sport, of
Mhm.
analysis and technicality and freedom and expression, and both those things are very pronounced in my way. And so whether skating brought them out or skating was the place that they had a place to go, I'm not really sure if it's the chicken or the egg, but there was something that um, felt true in there, in a
Yeah,
deep way beyond my understanding.
love that. So you did start getting instruction at that young age, and
Yeah.
I imagine what that just kept continuing? Like, did you ever take a break, or this just was like a snowball? Yeah.
It's a snowball 30 years straight.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow. So you're getting the instruction. At what point do you decide that you're gonna do more like the pair skating?
Yeah, I mean, I like dabbled in all of it when I was young. It's pretty normal, but I was dead set on being a single skater. And
Yeah.
then I was about 18, and my sister and I were training at a school that had a lot of pairs. And she's 9 years younger than me, and she was 8 at the time, 9 at the time. And we thought it'd be really funny to like skate around the ice together, because I was 18 years old and she was, so young. And our
Yeah.
coach was like, that looks pretty good. Do it again. And we're like, oh, okay. And then he was like, okay, you start tomorrow. We're like, okay. And my sister and I started skating together, and we skated together for 6 years.
My gosh.
Hmm.
Okay. Alright. Were you whipping her up in the air and everything?
Yeah. Yeah.
This we literally just were on a cruise, and the show several of the shows, but it was more of the acrobatics, right? And a man lifting a lady in the air, with one foot and putting her leg out, and so many similarities to the pair skating, right? And I am always in awe of that. First of all, they're both so strong. Both of their strength, it's very obvious on the man's strength, because his muscles are bulging everywhere. I had said to my husband, they have to be similar strength, because, she might be in a one-arm handstand or something, right? Interesting, it's probably goofy, but to me, I find it interesting how different the bodies look to be in prime condition. Like his muscles are bulging, and she looks fit, but not like bulging, right? Um, but so fascinated for me as a mental trainer, especially working with athletes in other sports. I've never worked with skaters. Um, looking at, a lot of times I'm addressing fear-based thinking, and that can be worry, doubt, insecurity, second guessing, regret, worry, like all of these different things of fear-based thinking. So I help them to eliminate that, and then to have a more positive mindset, but not fluffy. Like it needs to be, you have to believe it, right? So one of the things that comes to my mind when I see skaters or these more acrobatic people, acrobats, not more acrobatic, is the level of fear. If there was any fear, that would not be whatever they're doing would not be successful. To me, it's one of the ultimate sports where you have to be present and trust and have faith, and not only in general, but in your partner. And there's so many layers of that I think it's pretty incredible. So tell me about that with you and the pair skating. How
Mhm.
how do you have that level of faith and trust and lack of fear?
Hmm. There's there are many layers to that question. I mean, on one hand, one thing that's super interesting about figure skating is we train, 90% of our year is training. We have like 6 major competitions a year. So everything's in the preparation. And then you're out on the ice, and the short program's like 2.5 minutes, a little bit more than 2.5 minutes. The free program's around 4 minutes. And within that time, all of your year's work, and if it's the Olympics, the last 4 years, potentially your whole life's work, come down to these little finite moments where you can catch an edge or get stuck in a hole or lose your focus for a moment. And um, within that, we also are being graded on our ability to not look like we're thinking about that, because we're
Yes.
performing and we're in character and creating a moment, creating a feeling for the audience and the judges. And so there's this really interesting aspect about the mind within figure skating where, the level of rehearsal and preparation is so essential. And
Mhm.
also it is very physically demanding. The heart rate gets up into, sometimes into the 190s during the free
Right.
program. And so there's a lot going on, and it can feel like chaos with the burning legs and, all the different things, and being able to maintain a level of calm and focus on minutia, the finite details,
Right.
and at the same time being able to let it all go to just enjoy the performance. And I think that, for me, preparation and fitness was a huge aspect of my mental strength, and also training my mind like a muscle, training my brain like a muscle.
Mhm.
I worked a lot in martial arts. I had
Yeah.
um, a sports psychologist I worked with that we did biofeedback. We did a lot of brain training, which helped a lot. And I had a very rigorous preparation um, routine leading up to competition and daily as well. And that really helped. And to kind of segue that into the pair side of things, it's really interesting. Looking back on it, being married and working with my wife, and we hold a certain level of responsibility in our work together. There's a lot of there are a lot of similarities, and there are a lot of reflections I'm getting on what that part of my life brought me. And there is this, like, the we is more important than the I.
Mhm.
And, our coaches would say, if one of you falls on a jump, psychologically, both of you have fallen on a jump, right? Like
Yeah.
there's this unifying force that's super important. And sometimes we do well with it and sometimes we don't. And I've gone through phases of my career where I feel like the way I showed up as a partner was my strength. And there are other partnerships where I really struggled with patience and I really
Mm.
struggled with trust because I didn't feel I was so focused on results and I was so focused on my fear of those results not coming into play because of the pressure I put on myself and not feeling like the standards I had set for my partner were being met. And therefore,
Mhm.
starting a routine in competition, I would be like, which version of this partner is going to show up today? How will I navigate this? Um,
Right.
so it's really fascinating. I mean, it kind of equivalent to like a tennis player hitting a ball, but like each game they have a different racket, and the ball or the court changes or whatever it might be. That's kind of what my experience felt like toward the end of my career.
Mhm. Mhm. So so powerful what you're saying there. A lot of people may or may I was gonna say may not know this, but, some may. That flow state, that zone state, the term zone or flow is an umbrella term used for this peak performance state of athletes. Everything disappears around them. Time seems to fly by. It doesn't feel like it's them. It's almost like it's outside, like something's working through them, or
Mhm.
um it's easy. There's no analytical conscious thinking about it. There are all of these elements that occurred. So that's another thing that I trained folks in, and is being in the flow or the zone state. But what I've learned through all that is it's a peak performance state, period. That's like end of sentence. That doesn't only apply to athletes. And that's one of the things that you were talking about. Um, being in that peak performance state applies to everything, whether it's martial arts, an actual sport, relationships, life, work, everything. That practice, because in the sport that you were involved in, it was absolutely imperative that you stayed in the flow state. Like you said, if your mind wandered for a moment. The other example of that, I was watching a interview with Dale Earnhardt Jr., and this was years ago, but he had been involved in an accident, after, running around the NASCAR, get whatever 200 miles an hour, whatever they do. And he totally took, he in the interview, he said, "It was my fault. It was 100% my fault that that accident happened. I let my mind wander for 1 second." And I was like, "Yes, I love that," because so many athletes I work with, it's not as obvious. Like, as a skater, and especially in your pair skating, if your mind wanders for even a half a second, you're done. You're dropping her, or something's going on. There will be an immediate consequence to that. And in NASCAR, there was an immediate consequence to that as well. But in other sports, it's not as obvious. So, I think it's really interesting when I have an athlete where it's that obvious, right? And you've lived that, and you've had to live it. So you had to learn how to be in the flow and the zone state, peak performance as a human, which then is applicable to all these other things in your life as
Mm.
well. So, and I could tell by your energy and your presence how that is with you now. You've internalized it. But have you seen, can you give me examples of times where your mind did wander, or that you had challenges because you were still thinking about an argument, or you were thinking about dinner, or you were thinking about your partner's mood or something? Did it take you out of the flow, and then there was an immediate consequence?
Yeah, it, what I found really fascinating to kind of touch on the flow state is, at least from my mind, I have a very fast, hyper analytical mind. And when pressure would arrive, it would almost like test me and start to play games. And as I got further into my career and, acquired more experience and more intimacy with my own mind and how to navigate it, what I realized is like my flow state very rarely was purely flow and stayed there. What I had to do was a constant tending. It was like those bumpers in the gutters of bowling. It was like just gently moving myself back into that center line. And when something would arrive, I had either the choice to indulge in the temptation of
Yeah,
exploring
yeah.
that thought or to just acknowledge it as white noise in the background. And so,
Yeah,
you know, I would say more those moments that pulled me out were when I indulged.
for
And by
sure.
indulging, it's I either exploring that thought or trying to fight against that thought, right? It's like
Yeah,
giving it power, giving it energy instead of being like, I'm no gracias. I'm busy right now, you know?
yeah.
Um, and so I find that really interesting because it's super prevalent in life,
Mhm.
and in the midst of a trigger or an argument, there's these moments where one can choose to remember the way through, like, my intentional way of being is I'm being offered an opportunity to practice it here, or I
Right,
can indulge in the story that wants to pull me back into that pattern, back into that way of being a victim or whatever is present.
right.
Um, and when I'm aware of that, it feels exactly like skating. It's
Nice.
it's that muscle is like, oh yeah, hello, old friend. Like
Nice, I like
th-
that. You're reminding me, and this was a while ago. I've been helping people with mental mindset for like 30 something years. So it was a while ago that Buddhist monks, you know, for a long time, nobody was ever able to interview them. They were doing their thing. It was assumed as an outsider, they're meditating, 10 hours a day and, hands off. And um, it's probably 8 or 10 years ago now, and maybe longer. They finally let some folks in to interview them and do like EKGs and assessments of their mind and their brain, especially when they're meditating. And I'll never forget it because this one particular monk that they were interviewing, he kind of broke the misconception that they're silencing their mind totally. Like it was believed that they could quiet their mind 100%. Like that's the peak level of great meditation is you mastered 8 hours of quiet mind. And so in the interview he said, "No, I have thoughts, we have this conscious mind. We have thoughts. That's what it's meant to do. It's meant to analyze and dissect and whatever." But he said, "I imagine them like clouds. And when I'm meditating, things come in and I imagine them like clouds and I will either emotionally attach to it or not. And even that's okay, right? I might attach for a moment or not, but he was like, and then I just let it pass." And he gave an example. He said, looking out the window, if he sees a beautiful woman and a child, his mind can definitely have the thought of what would my life had been like, if I hadn't become a monk and I could have had a wife and I could have had a child. And he was like, so I just allow my mind to go there if I choose. And he said, but I don't get emotional. I don't get sad. I'm like, I don't become sad or angry or frustrated or resentful. Like that's the involvement you're talking about, right? It's that emotional, like attaching to it and then
mhm.
allowing it to affect you versus just letting it experience it as a passing cloud.
Yeah, I mean the Buddhists say that the root of all suffering is attachment. So
Yes.
like that gripping on to wanting things to be a different way than they are, that wrestling and that fluidity. And I think there's something interesting there because there is the flip side of complete unattachment, which is kind of like a bypassing. There's that middle line of recognizing what is important and worth our effort and worth our care, and at the same time not getting swept up and taken, like keeping those roots anchored into the ground. And I think it's a very powerful lifelong practice.
For sure. For sure. But somebody like you thrown into that skating had some really good practice up front.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts around fear? Again, using the skating as your practice field for this, but also recognizing how this is a challenge for all humans in life. Did you notice that if you were afraid, I'm going to drop her. I'm afraid we're going to mess this up in competition because we've screwed it up a few times in practice, like something like that. Did you notice that if fear was present, you weren't as good?
Yeah, it causes tension. It
Yeah.
causes tension. It causes a lack of sensitivity and awareness and clarity. And what I've noticed is that fear, we end up having to tend to the fear, and we have less capacity to tend to what's happening. And
Mm.
so the bandwidth shifts, and then the body gets into this, like it wants to get into this fight or flight, and clenching can start to happen. And for me, my relationship with fear was very much like the clouds. You know,
Yes.
I would see it, I would feel it. There were always moments before I stepped out on the ice for competition, like, why am I doing this to myself? You know, and then I would choose consciously when I got out there to say to myself, I live for this. You know,
Nice one.
I live for embracing my fear and overcoming it, because I'm learning myself. I'm remembering the like root of who I am when I meet my fear and break through it. And so I think fear, for me, fear, there's a lot of fear involved in sports, right? There's the fear of our safety, there's the fear of failure, there's the fear methodology that a lot of coaches use, which
Mm.
can be effective, but it has a lot of pollution. It's got a lot of collateral,
Mhm.
right? And so
Mhm.
when we work with fear as our gasoline, we're going to cause a lot of pollution. And I feel like fear is a part of us that's just, it's just care, it's just love trying to keep us safe. It's a survival mechanism that's 100% necessary. I think there can be more guidance in our world on how to relate to fear and navigate it. There's a lot of fear of fear itself. And so when
Mm.
fear arrives, there's this like resistance and this clenching, as opposed to like, oh, hello, fear. Welcome to the conversation. You know, I know you're here to try and keep me safe from embarrassing myself or whatever it is. I've got this. Thank you. You know, I appreciate your effort. You know, this like way
Yeah.
of dialoguing with different parts of the self has helped me.
Yeah. And you're touching on something I've observed because I work mostly with men as athletes, and a lot of them will say, "Oh, I don't have, I'm not afraid. I don't have fear." And I'm like, "Wait, I'm afraid I'm going to miss. That's fear. I'm afraid that this miss will affect the rest of my performance. I'm afraid that I won't be able to win at this tournament because I never win at this particular competition or whatever." That's all fear, and so, I've observed what you're saying. There's some people that don't even wanna acknowledge it. They don't even want to label it or have a conversation about it or with it, but once I break it down into a sentence,
Hmm.
I am afraid of, it's like, oh, a little light bulb goes off, and it's okay. It's let's look at it because fear is a separator, right? And it causes the fear response, the fight or flight response, which is definitely all the wrong muscles and all the
Hmm.
wrong mechanisms. They're meant to help you to either fight or flee, not do your performance of whatever it is that you're looking to do really well at. And that's another thing that I've really studied and taken a look at and have come to understand because it is so prevalent. Fear's behind doubt, it's behind worry, it's behind regret, it's behind, second guessing, it's behind all of these emotions that keep us from being our best selves, that put us into, high blood pressure and, sleep problems and anxiety issues and depression and whatever else.
Mm.
Our peak in my opinion, my peak human performance self is when I'm tapped into my higher self. And I know you touched on that a little bit too in a different way, but you said, I live for this. This is who I am. Like this, to me, just like ego separates, the fear pulls us out from who we really are, and we're love-based beings, that we can experience
Mm-hmm.
peace and we can experience acceptance and joy and gratitude and all these great love-based type thoughts and feelings. And when we function from that place, that's the same as the flow state and the zone state. So
Mm-hmm.
again, for me, thinking it's super cool that you've spent, what was it, 20 or 30 years or something living connected through experiences, especially skating, but connected to your higher self and knowing how to tap in and plug into that. Did you ever feel like it wasn't you? Like, I know there's muscle memory and, obviously that's what practice and training is meant to do. But did it ever feel like an out of body experience kind of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were definitely
Yeah.
moments where I was a passenger. Is a full, what I would call a spiritual experience, like becoming a vessel for some form of energy expressing itself through me. Um,
Yeah.
and those are few and very special moments where the autopilot fully turned on, and I,
Nice.
they like even remembering all of it is hard. It's like it's an experience that lives within like my somatic being, not just like my conscious cerebral being. There's this aspect of I live that, and it lives in my whole body. It's not just something I can remember as pictures or videos, in my
Yeah.
mind. It's very different
Energy. Yep.
energy, and
Yeah.
to touch on something you were sharing about with fear. I feel like there's an aspect of liberation that happens when we acknowledge our fear. It's like vulnerability,
Yeah.
authenticity, right? The most pure expression of who we are, our highest being, our higher being, our soul, however you want to call it. When we can like meet our fear of expressing that authenticity, that vulnerability, then we get to know our courage, right? We can't know our courage without our fear. And so fear is like a beautiful teacher in our lives because it reflects
Mhm.
to us not only what are we scared of, but also reflects to us how we are in relationship with it. And so to reach these moments of, yeah, of flow state, I feel there's something about giving ourselves permission to completely let go, to liberate
Yeah.
ourselves of that fear. It's and some people, I've heard some people say like, "Well, what do you mean you don't care about the result?" It's like it's not that you don't care, it's that you let it go. There's this
It's
I'm not in control. And
yeah.
that is really freeing when you when one can like really let go and be like, I'm not in control. This is amazing. I can just live this. And what a gift to take, 6 months of arduous work and effort and discipline and devotion and just live this 4-minute moments of purity. um, the results will come how they're meant to, but that kind of experience is something that I think is the most the most imprinted in my memory of my skating life.
What a great memory.
Mhm.
The way that shows up with my clients is teaching them to care without caring. It's this gray area. We're also used to going black and white, right? You either care or you don't care, but there's this gray area, and we don't know how to live in the gray. And we like to we either agree with it or we disagree. I like it or I don't like it. It's good
Mhm.
or it's bad, and it's like, how can I learn to be more neutral? And um another thing that you touched on that made me think of some of my clients is, oh gosh, and there it just went. Let's see if it comes back. Sports or competing in particular is my greatest strengths and my greatest weaknesses under a microscope. Like, they show up when something really something really matters. So for me, working with athletes versus other clients, because I have all different other kind of clients too, but working with an athlete, they're committed and they're devoted to, becoming better at that thing, whatever it is. And more so than other clients. Like I said, I've worked with weight loss and wellness and people with fear of flying and fear of heights, all that because of hypnosis, sleep issues, confidence issues. But the athletes, like, they're on a mission, right? They're like,
Mhm.
they've got this vision of where they want to go. And I tell them, because a lot of times there are other mental trainers out there, sports psychologists that will tell them, if you miss, just move on, just move, forget about it, buddy, and they kind of pat him on the back and don't dwell on it, don't think about it, don't emotionally attach to it, right? It makes sense on the surface, but everything you want down that road, you're going to get there more efficiently and sooner if you take a look and pause and look at what your fears are. What's getting stirred up when you miss or when you have the challenge, because it is different for everybody. Some people are worriers, right? And some are regretters, and some are overthinkers and over analytical, and some doubt, and some, there's all these different things. But I tell him, if you can imagine this big manly God, and he's putting his hands out, he's like, everything you want down there, you have to look at this first. And I'm showing it to you with a neon flashing sign.
Mhm.
Like, don't ignore it. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Don't just have a temper tantrum about it.
And in fact, this is your fuel to get there, right? This
Yes.
is your material for alchemization, right? This is eventually, when you can make sense of it, going to be the thing that burns the engine so the car can go down the road.
Yeah.
It's I personally, I love to look at this through this lens of the student mind. I want to understand, and the
Mm-hmm.
deeper I go into it, the more I see that life is speaking to us always in
Yeah.
metaphor and symbolism. There is always something coming through. It's not whether or not it's there, it's whether or not we're paying attention.
Mm.
Or I like to say giving attention. I don't want to say we're paying attention. We're offering our attention.
Right.
Um, and that presence is the same presence required for competition, the same presence required for training, that like fine-tuned connection to what is here and what is now, and what am I feeling in my body, what am I feeling in my mind and my heart. Um and that, like, the word discipline comes from the word disciple, which means
Mm.
one who learns. It's
Nice.
like a commitment to the student mind. And so, yeah, we can just say, let it go. And there's definitely value in that. And there's also, what's at the root of that, right? Like, if I really want to understand my mechanisms, what's at the root of that? As I'm going into this jump and I get a little tense and try a little too hard too early, what's at the root of it? How, like, a tree can only grow as tall as its roots are deep. Actually, its roots are even deeper. So
Yeah.
if we're to understand how to elevate ourselves, we need to tend to what happens beneath the surface first. And that's kind of my approach, at least my philosophy on these things, is the holistic view of cleaning all of this up and getting intimate with who we are, so that, yeah, we can drive this vehicle with more awareness of how it works.
Right. Nice. Well, so let's go back again a little bit. So, you've got a coach, you're full speed ahead with the figure skating. Um, what happens? Why do you decide to stop doing that?
Well, that was about 3 decades later. So
Yeah.
a lot happened, and I'm very fortunate that my skating career lasted into my 30s. I
Yeah.
retired at 33. I stuck around for one more Olympics. I skated with a different partner. She had moved from Russia to skate with me. And then at the end of my career, like right before that second Olympics, 3 weeks before nationals, 200-pound mirror fell on my face in a Pilates studio.
Was
Yeah,
it
like a
was it on
door.
the ceiling?
Like the storage room door, this big metal door with a mirror on it. And I was
Wow.
about to start meditating, and I had received a phone call at the time and I answered it with headphones, and this woman came to put something in the storage room, and the door fell off its hinge and fell onto me. The only reason I survived was because I wasn't meditating yet. I heard something and I went like this, and my hand broke enough of the fall that it didn't kill me, but I was unconscious,
Holy.
and there was like shards of glass all over my body, my neck, my face, and
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and so it was super intense, and I was concussed. We competed at nationals 3 weeks later on like 3 days of training. I was still concussed and stitches in my hand, and we missed the Olympic team by a spot. And that was it. And I
Wow.
knew that that was going to be it, and I felt very bitter. And I ran from the sport. I started doing some coaching, but every time I'd go in the rink, I would have like PTSD. It was like
Yeah.
really, really intense for quite a while. And so, yeah, I'm very grateful in many ways. I mean, the metaphor of a mirror landing on my face. How many
Um,
messages did life send me before I, like paid attention? Um,
right?
Crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
But it gave
Spooky.
me it gave me the impetus to find something else in my life, and I feel like I'm living my mission. I'm living my purpose, and I don't know how long it would have taken me to break free of skating. Not that
Yeah.
there's anything wrong with skating, but it literally shattered my identity and set me on this path of starting to look inward gradually at first and then all in.
That's a crazy transition, but, I agree with you, and it did force your hand, didn't it? So tell me then what starts unfolding for you at that point in your life, like, because I know you have several ventures and things that you're doing, so what did you start doing first?
Yeah, acting, screenwriting, broadcasting. I was still very much in the mentality of needing to be seen and celebrated somehow.
Hmm.
Acting ended up being like the first stage of my healing journey of it, accessing all my emotions and honoring them and becoming more vulnerable. And then, um, yeah, eventually I had an experience with a psychedelic medicine that like shattered me open and really, really took me into the depth of my existential crisis after retiring. And that's when a mentor came into my life. I started studying some Buddhism and yoga, and felt this deep calling to go down to the jungle and you know meet these indigenous ways of healing and remembering ourselves. And so I eventually did that, and um, felt I started feeling this calling to be of service to helping other athletes with their transition. And the message I got at first was all that will come, but you first. And so
Hmm.
I embarked on my own healing journey quite profoundly. And then within a year, I left my life in Toronto and moved down to Costa Rica. I met my wife a few months later, and this path of study and healing and exploration just kind of open full blast. I've been water skiing behind it ever since, like blindfolded,
Nice.
just here we go. Um, and so, yeah, that's been a really fascinating dance for me of the athlete mind and all that that has brought me, and then these ancient ways of returning home to the self, of seeing the world as alive and receiving, becoming a student, really opening up the ear and eyes to listen and see and receive. And now I blend those two together, um,
Nice.
helping, whether it's athletes with their mindset. I've worked with some professional pianists, um, but really bringing in this philosophy of like you can give of yourself, you don't have to give away yourself
Mm.
to a dream, to a journey, and it can be like a very spiritual and self-fulfilling um, path if we can approach it with this way of my relationship with myself comes first,
Mhm.
and that place of wholeness is the thing that will be the fountain that drives the continued growth of an evolution of success and excellence, and not needing it to be that, like, I'm only worthy once I achieve this, and the
Yeah.
results are my definition as a human. But flipping it on its head, and having it be this beautiful path of self-discovery through
Yeah.
this passion.
Yeah. Yeah. That is one of the challenges I definitely see with athlete clients is, just the way they define themselves by how good or so-called bad they've done with their competition that day, and it really can haunt them and affect their day-to-day life, and, n before I wrote my first book, I was I thought, "Well, I'm gonna read, this other person's book." He's working with golfers also, he's a sports psychologist, and, he's one of the top known guys, and I'm just gonna see what he has to write, and so, I didn't get past the first chapter because I was like, "I can't believe he's saying this," but he was basically saying, "Either way, you've worked your ass off to get on the PGA Tour, and, your next goal is to win on tour. I'm just gonna let you know, once you win, you're gonna be depressed afterwards, and it's gonna be, um
Hmm.
that's just part of it, it's just part of it. It's not gonna fulfill you the way that you thought it would," and all, and I was like, "Why is that's not okay," Like, no, it doesn't have to be part of it, but it's part of it if that's your only goal and your whole life revolves around that one thing instead of enjoying the journey. That's the journey versus the destination. Is my focus only on the destination? I'm not enjoying the journey. But if you come back and you enjoy the and evolve and see how, sports reflects your strengths and weaknesses in your life, and how you can keep becoming, a healthier and stronger and more empowered person, that happens to just show up in your scores, that just happens to show up then as an outcome in your score, but it shows up in outcomes everywhere in life, and I couldn't finish reading that book because I thought, no, that's not at all what I want to help people. I don't ever, it can happen, but only if you don't understand your mind and how to enjoy that process and not live and breathe just the sport. And as you pointed out, the recognition and the spotlight and defining yourself by that, right?
Hmm.
That there's
and i
more
and
to
i
it.
did that, and
Yeah.
I definitely crashed, and it was super painful, and really, really, the depth of it was like the darkest night of the soul. I was, and
Yeah.
you're right. It doesn't have to be that way. We can remind each other that, the hype, the promised land of arriving at success, it's a mirage. It's beautiful, but if we understand it for what it is, and, like you said, the journey, not the destination, if we can see that the path of growing in a sport, or a pursuit like ballet or music, or, anything that requires our full devotion, if we can see that as the thing,
Yeah.
the process based goals, and the, like, how am I evolving, how am I learning, how am I growing, no matter what, you're going to move into the next phase of your life, and going to keep flourishing. And it's not that that's not accessible if you go about it the other way, but there will be some painful moments of, like, pulling out some weeds and some rotten roots
Mhm.
and some psychological patterns and beliefs that are really can be toxic. And I
Yeah.
lived that. I lived that, and it's very strong, very strong.
Well, I think it would be odd for you not to have lived it. You're such at such a young age. Everything's kind of got its light and its shadow side, right? I mean, you were at such a young age that performance, how well you did was, whether you got praise or, let's go back at it and work harder because it's not good enough, right? And that was your
Mhm.
message from such a young age. And, there's just pros and cons to that, right?
For
And,
sure. For sure. It's like life
so
under a magnifying glass, right? It's all condensed into small moments, and
yeah,
I think that's one reason athletes mature in certain ways, mature very quickly, is because they experience, like, the magnitude of life in a moment.
yeah,
Like, it feels like life or death.
yes, yeah, yeah. It's really interesting. One of my employees that works for me now, because I own a shotgun club, she's, one of the employees there, but she had a good, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years where she was being coached and as a skater and, the Russian coaches, and she's talked to me about how, like, absolutely nothing was good enough except for perfect for in her world, in her experience with that, and it just I can see it in her now, the fear of letting somebody down, not being good enough, not having done the right thing. In other areas, she's not skating now, but it just became a part of her personality that, ev all these different things. She's in her, late 20s now, but, wanting to get the approval, wanting to, make sure that she goes above and beyond and can therefore then be recognized for what she's done. I mean, she has great intentions, and I love her to death, but I could see how that's played into the person that she's become, or magnified those aspects, and so, seeing them now more, in her
Hmm.
life, because she hasn't really necessarily addressed them or done some soul
Mm.
searching around them.
Yeah.
Um,
And in my experience, they keep speaking to us in different ways. I mean, look, the mirror was like, okay, like he's not getting the point. We're going to turn up the volume a little bit, but
right?
like the mind and the body will speak louder and louder and in different ways to try and get our attention to start, yeah, like listening.
Yeah, yeah. The one I think that's most obvious to people is when you get sick, right? And you can't you're working too much, doing too much, not taking good care of yourself, and then you're down and out for a
Hmm.
week or 2 weeks or something, and it's like
Yeah.
forced rest, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me some of these businesses or, organizations and such that you've created.
Yeah. So my wife and I have an organization called Tierra Viviente, which is Earth Living, and it's a collective for, yeah, the evolution of the human being, of the soul, of the mind, of the heart, in this collective way. And so we run different retreats. We work with an indigenous family in Peru in the Amazon. We bring groups there. We bring them out as well. Um, we do some online courses, and we're doing our first relationship retreat next week for couples
Nice.
called Wings of Love, and yeah, that's going to happen here in Costa Rica.
Love that.
Yeah, we're really excited about that one. Um, I have a men's work collective that I co-founded with a dear brother of mine called Mankind Collective. The name might be changing, so I'll say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another body of work I'm super passionate about. This idea of creating safe spaces for men to really talk about their feelings and truth and normalize it and explore
Nice.
what does it mean to be, the masculinity is thrown around a lot today, the toxic masculinity, balanced masculinity, divine masculine. What do all these things mean to each of us, and how do we explore how to show up in the world in a grounded and focused way and bring about harmony and both internally and externally. So that's another project. And
Nice.
um, the liminal way is kind of my own personal work, and it's a methodology that I've created or received, depending on how you want to look at it.
Mhm.
That helps. It was inspired by athlete minds and transition as the liminal space, as that space between that threshold of transformation. And so the idea behind it is taking all of the mindset tools of an Olympic athlete or a high level athlete and applying them to being able to be present within these moments of massive transformation where it feels like everything's crumbling and identity is dissolving, a loved one is dying, and our reality
Mhm.
is
Nice.
shifting. And as opposed to just surviving it, there are so many ways that we can work with it to collaborate. plant seeds for the future, because it is like ripe soil is being offered to us, to create a new way forward. And so
Nice.
that mentality is kind of how I approach coaching for athletes, for non-athletes, and just approaching the mindset work is through this
Hmm.
idea that we are always able to be in this transformative state if we allow ourselves into a deep state of reflection. And I
Beautiful.
work with that. I work with that surrounding plant medicine work as well. As preparation and integration, as that is a huge part of my path and study. But it is not exclusive to that. I also work outside of that and bring it into speeches. I have a TED talk coming up next month on that topic, and um, pending
Nice.
podcasts, and yeah, just exploring ways that my creativity wants to move through me and continually grow, and then offer it back to the world.
Nice, nice. Those are all really fascinating things that you're doing, and what great ways to contribute to. And um, this has been a really fascinating conversation. And I knew
Thank
it
you.
would
Yeah,
be because
likewise.
of my fascinating with the mind, and how you had to be on point for so much of what you were doing for so long in your life.
Hmm.
Um, I do want to tell listeners that they can get some free goodies. Any of my 3 businesses, if they go to dawngrant.com/free. I do have online courses and do speaking engagements and such as well. And definitely follow me on social media. I provide lots of free tips and information, whether it's Dawn Grant or Amelia Shotgun Sports or Mind Mastered. And Dylan, please share your contact info so people can reach out to you.
Yeah, contact.liminalway@gmail.com is a good way to reach me through email. You can find me on Instagram, Dylan.Moscovitch. And yeah, also, we live and work at a beautiful retreat center here in Costa Rica called Yakumama. You can find it at www.yakumama.love. We have many different retreats and residency opportunities happening here for people who want to come and live on the land. It's very, very, very magical and beautiful. So that's another thing I'd love to bring forth. And also, I just want to say thank you to you, Don, for your commitment to this work for so many years, helping athletes and helping individuals, get be in charge of their mind, be in charge of their lives through that. And your continued devotion to this path, I really appreciate it, and uplift all the work you do and continue to do.
Thank you very much, Dylan. And hey, if you're ever looking for someone that's a mental trainer, hypnotist to come down and be a part of your retreats, I'd love to, come in and do that at any time too. So
Thank
um,
you.
let me know if there's a spot for that. And thank you. And what a great conversation. And I'd say enjoy the winter, but you don't really have the winter down there in Costa Rica, do you?
We're entering into the drier summer season, so
Okay.
if
All
you need to
right.
escape, you know where to come.
Nice. Nice. Well, perfect. And happy holidays to you guys and happy
Likewise.
new year and all that great stuff. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Mind Mastered Secrets of Excellence with Don Grant. Whether you're an elite athlete or pursuing success in your career or personal life, Don Grant's expertise and insights are here to guide you. Don't forget to visit dawngrant.com/free to grab your exclusive free resources, hypnosis audios, mental training tools, and even a golf cart at her club. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow, rate, and share this podcast. Stay connected with Dawn on all social media platforms for more inspiration, tips, and updates. Remember, mastering your mind is the key to unlocking your full potential. Until next time, keep pushing your limits and striving for excellence.